Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. 'Tis the season to be jolly, right? Halloween parties, Thanksgiving feasts, Christmas and Hanukkah right around the corner. This is the time of year to have fun with family and friends. But this time of year can also be very tough for those of us who have lost loved ones and are grieving. How do we deal with our feelings of loss and loneliness? How do we get through the anger and frustration, very much a part of the grieving process? And how do we help others who are grieving? On today's Another View on Health, we talk with grief counselors who offer compassion and advice on how to cope with grief during the holidays. Stay tuned. Another View on Health is coming up next.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Coping with grief during the holidays is something that we all have to confront at some point in our lives. We have some excellent advice on ways to survive, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But first, we welcome Ms. Jasmine Smith, a member of the Hampton Roads Diversity and Inclusion Consortium, to tell us about a very special way that they will be honoring our military. Jasmine, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Welcome to Another View. So tell us, first of all, who is the Hampton Roads Diversity and Inclusion Consortium?
Okay. Well, we actually just got our 501c3 certification this year, but we've been hosting consortium meetings and other networking events surrounding diversity and inclusion in the area for going on 7 years now. Mm-hmm. Our vision really is to become agents of change who assist employers and community leaders ensuring that diversity and inclusion are embedded within the culture of their organizations. And that's really the basis of our goals.
Mm-hmm. I've had the pleasure of attending many of your conferences, and you all bring a lot of expertise to the area. But this time we're talking about the military. What's going to be going on the 29th of October?
So, as you know, we're having an amazing luncheon on October 29th. It's going to be at the Waterside Marriott in Norfolk. The luncheon is going to honor members of the community, either military, active duty military, veterans, and even civilians who have contributed to the unique culture that we have in this area. It's really important to understand the experience that our military members bring to this region and what their contributions can do to help us thrive and become a better place. So we want to honor those who are in the community, building those bridges in between the military and the civilian world. So we're going to be awarding some recipients with a Pride Service Award, and it's going to be presented in partnership with the City of Norfolk. So it's going to be a really great event, and we have a lot of community leaders who are coming out in addition to several military members who will be attending.
Absolutely, and I have the honor and pleasure of serving as the MC for this event, so we hope that you will come out. I know that tickets are available. How do people find out more information?
They can visit our website at hrdic.com. The tickets are available there through the Eventbrite link.
Okay. So that is on Tuesday the 29th. Tickets are still available. And we hope that you will come out and help us honor our military as they show and demonstrate on a daily basis why diversity and inclusion is important. Jasmine, I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday. And thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thanks very, very much. So as many of you may be aware, my mom passed away on May 15th of this year, which means that this will be my and my family's first Thanksgiving and Christmas without her. Frankly, I don't know what to expect and how I will feel, and I'm sure there are many of you out there in the same situation. Coping with grief during the holidays is tough, but you can cope. And here to tell us how is hospice chaplain and pastoral counselor Evelyn Lee. Evelyn, how are you?
Good.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us. Licensed professional counselor Charlotte Maull. How are you, Charlotte?
Fine, thank you.
Good. And, of course, my co-host for Another View on Health, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine.
All
and
right.
Should I refer to you as Pastor Lee? Evelyn?
Reverend Lee.
Reverend Lee. Okay, Reverend Lee. All right. So, when we talk about grief and we think about this, I told my producer as I was coming in, make sure there's a box of tissues in the room because I don't know. I may or may not get through it. But how do you define grief, Pastor Reverend Lee?
Well, grief is mourning the loss of a loved one. The emotional reaction of what you experience after you lose a loved one. I would say.
Charlotte, is it only in terms of people? But I mean, can it be also? You can also grieve loss of a job or loss of a pet or
right.
Oh
relationships.
Yes, yes. Our program, however, focuses primarily on the spouse. However, we do have members who come who want to talk about the loss, believe it or not, of their pet. Or loss of a home that they used to live in for years. All of these are grief issues that say something that I had in my life was important that's gone now. And I'm feeling different.
Now, you all have a support group out of First Baptist Church, Butte Street, correct? Called Grief Care?
Grief Share.
Grief Share. Grief Share, okay.
Grief Share is a network of about 12,000 churches around the world. And it's biblically based, non-denominational. And the support groups are basically, the format is the same wherever you are. So if you happen to be here and you relocate, you can easily transition into a group, in another state. And the format, as I said, is standard. And there's a workbook that goes along with it. We start out with a video, introduction, and before we start, a video which varies from 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And then we break into small discussion groups to talk about the video and what persons, are experiencing. It's not just for spouses. It's for the loss of any relationship. It could be family member, friends, spouses. Grief Share does have a focus on surviving the grief with spouses. That's a separate group. Ours is for any relationship. So we have persons attending now who their child has passed, husbands, sisters.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call. Join our conversation. Are you struggling with grief issues? Do you think that you may have been in your grieving too long or too short? Or you're confused about what is happening with you? Give us a call and let's talk about it. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So let's go back to this whole idea of grief and grieving. Sometimes people say, okay, you've been in it too long, or you've been in it long. You've been in it too long. It's time for you to move on. How do you know what's too long to grieve the loss of someone, Charlotte?
We make it perfectly clear that grieving is unique to each individual. Really, you cannot say that you're going to grieve like someone else, and the way you grieve might be totally different than someone experiences. I've been a widow now for 15 years, and I can say, and I really share of how it is that there are triggers every now and then that brings up memories, and I'm 15 into it, and I might be speaking to someone who just lost someone last month, and we say, do not let anyone tell you how to grieve, how to move forward, how to do specific things in order to move on. You have to be able to move at your pace, to recognize your feelings, to give importance to those feelings, and don't feel bad when you haven't removed the clothes yet, and you haven't been able to go here by yourself anymore. Take it at your own pace, and you will know. And this is what Grief Share helps. When you get in the group and see how some people are experiencing exactly what you are experiencing, and you say to yourself, "Wow, I'm not too far away," or I'm at a pace that's okay. So it is a unique process.
But don't most people? I was gonna say, Evelyn, don't they go on their own? I mean, go through the grieving process on their own, or do many people come in together in community as you all have created?
Well, can I go back to
Sure.
the other point about how do you know if you're grieving too long?
Mm-hmm.
The grief share, and I omitted to say there are 13 sessions of a cycle of grief share. And just yesterday, the topic was being stuck. And I think maybe that's the answer, to your question. Like Charlotte said, there's no set time that we can say, like 2 years, you should be, some people say over it. That's not a term that we use.
Yeah.
But 2 years out, 3 years, I'm just using that as an example. If your feelings, if you're reacting the same way as when you did when your loved one first died, then you probably need to seek professional help. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
The goal is, we don't want to say to get over it, but as time goes on, your pain lessens. Doesn't mean that you forget the person that you love, but the pain is not as deep, if that makes sense. So,
I think a lot of each individual handles things differently. And, because even when I reflect back myself, my father died January 1st of 1971. And I was 7 years old at the time. And I still remember the night he died. And I remember my mom lifted me up to kiss him goodbye. He was comatose at the time. And certain things just stay in your mind and stay in your mind forever. And I know it changed me. And, you don't realize that at the time. You don't realize it at that age, how things may impact you as you grow up. But you have to, as I've had friends over the years and people who have been in counseling, they will say that, you with each relationship you develop, you bring baggage into that relationship, meaning things, your experiences and things that you come up and how you deal with that. I know for me personally, I have that aspect of losing a parent at that younger age. It does impact you. How is variable, and I think my life could have gone several different ways growing up without a father. Now, I know, unfortunately, so that's more commonplace now than you like to see it. But at the time when, again, even with each individual, it's different. So I always look at it has to be individualized. And I don't think you ever, like you say, you never, to me, get over anything. I think you just learn to deal with it.
Learn to cope.
And learn to adjust.
Adjust.
Learn to adjust.
I was just getting ready to go to our phone line and we just lost it. At any rate, 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Keith, you brought up the fact that you were a child, 7 years old. And I think about my granddaughter who has lost her both her grandfather, her great-grandfather, her great-grandmother, and her grandmother. All within the past 4 years.
Wow.
And so when we talk about children and how we should deal with them and cope with them, some suggestions that you guys may have?
Well, I know Edmark, and I can't speak a lot about it, so I've never, I have not been a part of Edmark, but I know they are the agency in the area that specializes in grief for children. So if someone has a young child and would like some support, that is a credible place to contact. I think I was a school counselor for many years, and conversation is just like we would do with adults. Talk to them about it. There are many books in the library that you can borrow and discuss it with your child, because death is a part of living. It's part of life, and it's the price we pay for having loved someone is what grief is, what we go through. So I would say be honest with them.
Tell them what's really going on.
It's amazing. Children are so honest in so many ways. They will give you ideas. They will give you discussions that sometimes can be very amazing. They sometimes can lead us into knowing, hey, I want to know the answer to that. And sometimes it can be so simple, and we want to make it complicated. And they will say, where's grandma now? And I mean, they will ask specific questions to let you know, wow, it's just a simple thing that I missed something and I want a little explanation. So be open, be honest, watch out for the cues that they are telling you that I want to know more, encourage that.
Cues such as?
Well, if you're really on the kind of like the professional side like I am, sometimes drawings and sometimes things that they listen to and things that they talk about when they're alone. Sometimes you might need to just stand and listen and not know all the time they're listening. Drawings are very, very helpful. And then sometimes just sitting down in a very relaxed moment so that they know that they have your attention and that you're just sharing. Kids will tell you a lot. They will tell you a lot.
And I would say, as a former school counselor, when a child has lost a loved one, be a partner with the school. Let the school know, particularly elementary. Well, not just elementary, but high school, middle school. Let the school know, because as you said, what are some of the signs? Grades will plummet, behavior, things that are just change, and you don't know why. The teacher may not know why, but if you have met with them and said, "Well, look, Evelyn's dad died a week ago or 2 weeks. Please keep an eye out, or let me know if you see any changes." Right.
So,
and they cry.
Cry.
They cry.
Withdraw.
One of the dangers, I think, in this day and time that you have to watch out for with children is with the social media aspect of things, and if you're not careful, if a parent or some loved one of a child is deceased, the danger is they may want to fill that void with something else. And unfortunately, so if it's not down the right path and you're, as a parent, not aware of, again, what they're looking at or what have you, or who are they exposed to, because predators love those situations.
To prey on the
notice
vulnerable.
when kids are needing something.
The call that we had before by a woman by the name of Linda from Norfolk, and she wanted to know how to process grief when you know a loved one's death is imminent. So you've been told it's a terminal illness. How do you process that grief?
That's a good question.
How do you
process what's happening?
Just how to deal with it.
How do you deal with it? How do you start to prepare for it? How do you because that's another area where you grieve because you know it's coming.
Well, as a former retired hospice chaplain, a great booklet is Gone From My Sight. And if that person is in hospice, then they will be provided, or they can ask the staff for a book. And what it does, it gives you signs of what to look for as the person transitions from 6 months to days, before. And like anything else, it's prepare. To be one thing is to be honest and to accept the fact that the person is dying. I notice a lot sometimes in hospice, even though to be in hospice, you have to have a terminal illness. Sometimes families have a hard time with that, accepting
the fact.
And it is a fine line between holding on to your faith. I struggled with this as a hospice chaplain, to hold on to your faith and know that God can perform miracles. But that's what they are, miracles. They're exceptions. They're extraordinary situations. And then on the other hand, like I said, accepting the fact that the person is dying.
And the most important thing during that time is quality time together. Just quiet, quality time together is you'll just be able to respond.
Should you take your cues from the person who's ill in terms of if they want to talk about the illness or not?
Everything's about them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everything is about the person who's transitioning.
And the questions that they might ask. And they want to know if you're going to be there. And they just want to also know the quality of our relationship, and the relationships that they value. They will talk about the relationships they will value, which give you an opportunity to probably bring in a daughter that he or she is missing, or a pet that she or she, whatever it is to listen very intensely and let that person know, I'm giving you the quality time of for the first time or for the second time or for however knowing what your wishes are and how you are feeling right now. How you are feeling right now.
I think it's
so
right,
important.
like she said, the quality time,
Quality
giving your
time.
presence. That's one thing I learned when I was training, doing my clinical training is presence. We don't always have to talk, which is
Just
so
to be
hard.
there. Yeah.
And someone asked me when I was training, what was when I was going through a difficult divorce and I felt, all alone, and they asked, well, what would have brought you comfort? And I said, just having someone there.
Now they didn't have to say anything or do
Right.
anything, but just
Just
be
to
there.
know that they
Just
were
that
there.
were
And
there.
it's the
Just to be
same
there.
thing with when you're transitioning.
So is there something that you should never say to someone who is
Get over
grieving?
Get over it.
Get over it. No, don't say that.
And we talk about that a lot in group, to not be upset with people when they say things that can be and sound very insensitive, because sometimes people just don't know, and they will make
Give us
some
an
statement.
example. Give us some examples.
Well, now that babe is dead, you can have more time for the other one.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
You've heard that one,
we
right?
laugh about that, but I'm gonna tell you, I've heard that before.
You've heard that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Or the spouse, they say, "Oh, you go and get you a real
You go get your
husband
real
now."
husband
or
now.
something.
It's
I mean, just these crazy kind of terms, and it's like no feeling whatsoever.
Ever.
That's why I say sometimes just think. I always tell people, "What you count to 10 before you start talking." Count to 10. Make sure that what you're about to say is not going to sound crass or just unfeeling. I mean, that's empathy, and that's what we talked about before we started the show. Empathy, for some people, is not easy. I mean, and maybe because of my losses, I've developed an empathetic heart. As much as sometimes I may want to fuss about a situation, but you gotta kind of look at the world through a different set of eyes and a different lens, and you can't always say what you think somebody should do, or the term "get over it." And I mean, sometimes in the healthcare field, I've heard nurses that say really unfeeling, insensitive type things. Well, if I wouldn't want anybody doing this to me, and I'm like, you don't know that. You're not in that position. I say you may be careful what you think you would do, because until you look death in the eye,
that's right.
you don't know how you would respond.
Into it. That's true. So we know that there are 5 stages, or at least the Kubler-Ross model of grieving, that there are 5 stages of grief. And you don't go through them in a linear line. No. So in terms of talking about what the 5 stages are, so it's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. Do you all talk about those different stages in your counseling at all?
Not as it is outlined there. We usually have to, we really try to get people to address emotionally how they're feeling. Physically, because grief brings about a lot of physical symptoms,
such as
chest pain,
headaches, going out of breath,
anxiety, palpitations. I mean, there's a lot of I get a lot of those kind of evaluations.
Really,
that's partly what we talked about. Was unfortunately, so medicine has turned this tide that I don't really like at times, and we've gotten so test oriented that we stop talking to patients. We stop, they still the history and physical are still should be our forefront to getting that and understanding a person's background and their history and things that when you start getting into a family history, that's when sometimes you can uncover things, is your mother still living? Well, how old was she when she passed away? And if you find things that may have been recent or even as long time, and sometimes when you bring up a term, you watch their reaction, you can start to see, that
which would lead you to treat them differently than you might otherwise.
Yeah.
So emotionally, they might just have to get to the point that there are going to be triggers. There are going to be songs, smells, things that happen that will just cause you to cry. Unprepared, you're not even prepared that the tears are going to come. Physically, you're going to not feel as well. Headache, backache, stomachache, depression, weight gain, loss, not wanting to go out, low motivation. Spiritually, I don't want to go to church. I don't think God has been fair to me.
Yeah.
We get that. So, and then most of all, relationally, that means they do not do as well with people that they've done before. They don't want to go with those people that they used to be a couple. There used to be 4 of us.
Right.
Now I'm the 3rd person out. So those are 4 elements that we try to cover to let them know that they can evaluate where they are with each of them. Where are you spiritually? Are you still in denial that your loved one is really gone?
I'll tell you one thing.
And anger about it.
Hang on just one second. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the stages of grief and how to cope with grief during the holidays with grief counselors Evelyn Lee and Charlotte Maull, and my co-host for Another View on Health, Dr. Keith Newby. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. What questions do you have, or do you notice a change in one of your relatives or in yourself if you've had a recent loss, or even if it hasn't been recent? Have you been able to process and go through the grief process? Everyone goes through it because it is a part of nature to go through that. Heather joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Heather. You're on the air.
Yes, I want to celebrate these wonderful counselors. I was part of the original movement of hospice out of New Haven, Connecticut, and I would like to celebrate hospice and regard it as a miracle, letting go, acceptance, sharing memories, listening intensely, the ministry of presence, and to give a high place to empathy, which not all individuals have. That is also a gift and a grace. I have experienced in my work where a lot of people do try to offer false hope out of their own good intentions, but it can be unhelpful and thwarting, and Kubler-Ross does have a limited place. However, grief, as these counselors well know and are expressing beautifully, is personal and individual. And
Absolutely.
My father is 95, and he comes and goes. He was DNR at August, and I was just with him. I just left, and now he wants to live, and we're keeping it at home. And we're hoping to bring hospice to the home as we did for my mother. And it's a beautiful service to accept and rejoice.
Absolutely.
And it is hopeful as well and very helpful to people.
Thank you, Heather, so much for your call, and we wish your dad the best. Thank you.
Yes.
We appreciate that phone call. So, as people, how do you know if you are just experiencing grief as your personal way of experiencing it, or that you may need to get professional help? Is there a point or a place where you start going, maybe I need to go see somebody about this?
Well, I think Charlotte hit something that reminded me of myself, and I share this with the groups every time we start. My mom had a major stroke the day I graduated from seminary, May 12th, 2003. I can remember it. She lived for another 2 years until 2005, and then she passed. And the way I dealt with it was I stayed busy. So I really didn't deal with it, not knowing that I wasn't dealing with it. And couple of years passed, and Charlotte's niece, who's my close friend, who's a clinical social worker, said to me one day, "Ev, I think that you have a low-grade depression." I withdrew from my book club, which I started, was one of the founders and had been with them, and there's a couple of them maybe listening, had been with them a good probably 15 years. Didn't want to be in the group anymore. One day I just broke down crying at home, just didn't want to do anything. I was just overwhelmed. Because I was, in fact, I went to Charlotte. She was counseling me on the down low, I guess. But I just engaged in, I was newly married, went back to school, already have 2 masters, so went back to school was newly licensed as a minister, and all of these things. And so one day I just broke down. Unexplained, and when I went to a therapist, and the therapist said, "So, what's been going on the last couple of years?" And all I did was cry. I paid her to cry, to listen to me. Because the only other time I remember crying is when my friend came when my mom died. The night she died, she came over, she hugged me, cried. And that's the last time I remember really crying.
You know, I can relate when you talk about just doing things. When my mom passed in May, and then we had her memorial service. We had her funeral the following week, and then we had a memorial service in Baltimore in July. So that whole time, I was just getting things done. And I thought I had it pretty much together. And one morning, I was in the bathroom, and then my husband found me in the corner,
right?
You know, where
right.
I just
True.
It hits you at different times, and you just don't know. You were talking, Charlotte, about things that trigger. Memories or something happens. Absolutely. And it will trigger you, and so some of that is just your normal grieving process, but figuring out this is a little more than normal.
Yes, and that's, you asked that question, Barbara, and you were speaking of how do you know that you need counseling. And it's the same thing about depression. When you are depressed and when things are not going well, it impacts more than just the tears and the crying. It affects your job. People might find that you're a little bit more grumpy. You're not as able to communicate. You kind of withdraw more. You also have a tendency to not want to be around people a lot because you don't think that they might understand. But more than anything, we start seeing that anytime all of your daily activities are showing some areas of negligence, avoidance, anger. That is a signal that you need to go and speak to someone, because your whole daily activities are being impacted by your feelings that you're ignoring and not taking care of.
So Grief Share is biblically based, as you said. So what if you're not a believer? Will you guys take them in anyway?
They can come to Grief Share, but with the understanding that it is, we draw our strength from our belief in Christ. And that's where our hope is, okay? So we're not there to proselytize to them. They're welcome. They will be loved. They just need to know this particular program is biblically based. Scriptures are going to be referred to for them to meditate on and to draw strength from.
Do you have a new class coming up?
A new what?
New class coming up.
Every 13 weeks.
But we do have the surviving
the holidays,
the grief during the holidays coming up. That is November 9th at 9 a.m. at the Murray Center. And we encourage anybody who is...
So what's different? What do you do about it? What should I expect? Honestly, what do you do about the holidays? Because with the holidays, everybody, everything you see on TV is all a Hallmark moment. Everybody loves everybody, and everybody's coming home for the holidays and so forth. And it's going to be different this year.
And first of all, my heart goes with you this holiday. You. Just know that you can do it. It's just amazing because now, this is October, and already the songs have started in the mall. And I had one lady to say, I don't want to go to the mall because the music just causes me to just cry. You have to realize there are going to be triggers of sounds, smells, and sights of the holiday, and they're going to get you ready to what's going to happen, and you're not ready. You're not ready sometimes, and you just say to yourself, oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this.
So when people, so suppose you're in that space, you don't want to go.
You have to plan.
Do you
have to plan?
You need to plan ahead.
Okay, so if somebody invites you to come to dinner, for example, and you really aren't feeling it, should you force yourself to go? Should you stay home?
Go with your feelings. Right. We suggest that you try to go and plan so that you can leave. Do not go with anyone else who wants to stay for 3 hours. Go, and if 15 minutes is all you can do, go for that 15 minutes and leave. If people walk up to you and say those insensitive things, I learned something from one of the members. It was so cute. She said, I said, well, what did you say to him? She said, I say, God bless your little heart. Come up with
Bless
statements that gets you through what you're going through, because you
and that's what you mean by prepare.
Plan ahead for the whole season.
Okay.
You know?
So, give me some more
for
ideas.
example, whatever the traditions were, they're going to be different. I would say, plan ahead. Don't ignore your loved one, and don't ignore your own feelings. So what I mean by don't ignore, like if you have a Christmas, Thanksgiving dinner, plan ahead how you want to celebrate your loved one.
And do not try to duplicate it as it has always been, because it's different.
I tell you one thing that I think about, because my mother made the best German chocolate cake on the planet. Okay, and that was and growing up, you only got German chocolate cake at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and your birthday. I mean, because they were expensive cakes to make. She made it from scratch, and that's going to be.
What you gonna do about that chocolate? German chocolate cake?
Exactly, because it's not going to be there. Because you know what? My sister Nora, I learned how to make it. So we're going to have to find another dessert. I mean, we're going to have to find something else to sell about that.
Talk about that with your sister.
German chocolate cake,
right? In other words, people are afraid to talk about their loved one, to bring it up, or other people are afraid to bring the person up. Talk about your loved one, and maybe between you and your sister and the family, how are we going to celebrate Mom? Don't ignore the fact that she's not with you, but celebrate the positive, the loving memories, and how can we celebrate her?
Yeah, and that's it. My dad's been gone for 3 years, and that's what we did at dinner. We would sit around and tell jokes or talk about the funny things that would happen with him.
Exactly.
That would
That's
happen
a good
to
example.
dinner. Yeah,
and don't set your expectations too high. Everyone thinks that Christmas is supposed, or Thanksgiving is supposed to be this big holiday that everything is done in a special way. Perhaps modify it just a little bit, and don't say this is going to be the best day. No, don't set those expectations too high, because you're setting yourself up to fail, and just go with it.
So you prepared, you're in the middle of dinner, and you have a major breakdown. What do you expect, and you having the major breakdown, Evelyn? What am I supposed to do to try to help you get through it?
And my husband, bless him, he's probably listening. He's the best, wonderful husband. Really, because he said, "Babe, what can I do?" And I don't know what you can do. I can remember it so clearly.
Yeah,
I don't know what you want. I was screaming. Just be there. Yeah. Don't put it on me to try to coordinate anything, to fix. Just be there. You're gonna come. I'm gonna come out of it. Just hold me.
Yeah. I think the hardest thing is we tend to want to have people fix things the way we would, instead of letting them fix things the way they need to. Right. And that's one of the things I think in medicine I've had to learn to do, is to back off and just let it happen, and allow people. You like they were saying, you let the person know you're there. But sometimes, like that get over it thing, or those kind of comments where you say, well, that's what I would do. But that's not what this person's doing. And because I've seen it swing from grief-stricken to total avoidance.
Yes.
And I know that's been my danger, because I know I found myself, I avoid certain situations. I remember when my kids were growing up, I would actually get angry when they got sick, because I was worried about what would happen. to them. You know, one of the things I'd make a quick comment when I was one of the movies I'll never forget was that movie Parenthood. I don't know if you remember seeing that. I think it was Steve Martin or somebody. One of the scenes in there that I'd never forget was the father was Jason Robards of Steve Martin, and they had this bad relationship from childhood, and they started talking about it one day because his child had some emotional issues, and he made the comment, you know, when you were a baby, you had pneumonia. And you know, and I found I was angry because I thought I was worried about you. And he said, and I found that it never ends. You know, and it was, and so I was going to lose you at that time, so I became angry. And when you think about that, and you find that sometimes that's that avoidance issue, and you avoid certain situations because you don't want to face what may
what could happen. Kate, do you think men grieve differently than women?
I wouldn't say necessarily. To some degree, I think so. But I think, you know, humans are humans. It's just everybody's different. Because I've seen men go from one extreme to the other. I think sometimes we tend to get angrier, I think, than
and the
women
reason
do.
I asked that, too, because, you know, when hopefully it's changed now, but growing up, at least in my lifetime, you know, men were always told, you know, suck it up. You guys are the tough ones. You don't show emotion. You don't cry. You know, and I was just curious as to whether it might take you longer.
I think that's true to a large degree because of expectations of you as a man, you know, but in the end, you know, you can only control it but so long. The only fear that I have is sometimes you suppress it so much that it impacts you and your ability to deal with your loved ones as you go along, because you still have to be there for them.
And we've had men in our group.
Good.
We've had men in our
They've
group
been very
for
helpful too.
To share so that we can help understand what they need.
I was going to, Barbara, you mentioned if you have a breakdown during. One thing I would encourage you and others is surround yourself with people who support you.
Yeah.
And also be honest with those persons that you're going to be with. This is the first time my mom's not here. I may cry, I may not. I don't know. Yeah. Just let them know ahead of time. You know
that comment you made about you know, like if you go somewhere you don't take somebody with you.
Don't take somebody with you.
Well, you know, when you think about it, if you let that person know they invited you to this thing, so listen, if I don't stay long,
that's right.
Just understand why. Because sometimes being that upfront with them will allow them so they don't think or they're cooking just start.
That's right. That's right. I need to go, and I know that I need to go. I want to be by myself, and I really break down.
It wasn't that your mac and cheese was bad.
Not that the mac and cheese was bad.
So the other question I have for you is, should people expect to grieve the same way for each loved one they lose?
No. Absolutely not. And I'm glad you asked that, Barbara, because my husband died 15 years ago, but I just had a dear friend, a dear friend that died really about 5 years ago. And the way I grieve each of them is totally different, you know, because I can remember things that my husband and I did and the years of joy and pleasure and ups and downs. But with her, it was kind of endearing that she would even choose me to be with her at that end time, and how we would share fun moments. And it was totally different. And I can, at the holidays, start laughing about some things she would say at Christmas and cry when my husband would say some things. And he had some ugly little Christmas people that sing and do all that. I didn't like those. And for a while I said, I could get rid of those ugly things.
Let's see if we can get Mary Alice on from Franklin very quickly. Hi, Mary Alice. You're on the air.
Hey, Barbara.
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good.
I was so sorry to hear about your mother.
Thank you.
And I'm getting a little teary-eyed listening to the broadcast because this time of year, 10 years ago, my mother was in the hospital and she was dying. And that year, my birthday was on a Tuesday, which was the 24th of November. And Thanksgiving was 2 days later on the 26th. And Thanksgiving was always our biggest. family holiday. That's where everybody could be counted on to get together.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother died on the 25th. And I said she died on the 25th because she didn't want to die on my birthday, and she didn't want to spend any holidays without my dad.
Oh.
And my siblings and I decided, I don't know how we did it, but my siblings and I decided that we were going to go ahead and have Thanksgiving dinner at my mother's house in honor of her.
Oh. That's wonderful. That's wonderful, Mary Alice. Mary Alice is one of our biggest supporters here at Another View. We always appreciate hearing from you, Mary Alice, and I will be thinking of you at Thanksgiving. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling. We appreciate it. So we're almost out of time. What piece of advice, each of you, do you want to share before we go? Start with you, Charlotte Maull.
I just want, first of all, for people to know that grieving is a natural process. And don't feel that you are now something different. You're not that different. You're going through life situations. Find support in the family. Find support among friends. Be true and honest with your feelings. Give recognition to them. And do not be afraid to express them to someone whom you can trust. And just know that it's going to happen. Holiday tears are going to come. Holiday joys are going to be there. They're going to be up and down feelings. And none of them is going to be the same. But you are an individual. And you need to address it as this is unique to me. And be great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Evelyn?
Draw on your faith to get you through. That's the first thing. And similar to what Charlotte said, I wrote down a few things. Surround yourself with supportive persons. Be honest with yourself and others about what you're feeling. Don't express or ignore your feelings. Don't avoid talking about your loved ones. Don't think that because you don't talk about them that,
it's going to go away.
Okay,
it's going
to go away. And when persons ask, how are you feeling? Let them know.
Tell them the truth. Thank you, Evelyn. We appreciate that. Keith, you got the last 30 seconds.
All right, so just to be quickly, just as I think they hit all the points of the individuals going through the grief, just those that are being the supportive, just see the world through their eyes. Don't try to see the world just through your own. Be there, support those individuals, but understand what they're going through, and please don't try to tell them how they should feel.
Thank you all so very much. Yes, please tell us how we get in touch.
If you want more information about GriefShare, www.griefshareoneword.org, and all you have to do is search for a group, put in your zip code. There are many GriefShare, as I mentioned earlier, in the country and around the world. All
righty. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Essie Patha-Merkerson from Law and Order. You are listening to Another View.
See, my audio engineer is always so thoughtful because he knew I was going to be sad today, so he played my favorite one. Thank you, Todd. When we first introduced you to boxer Keyshawn Davis on Another View, he was 17 years old and a junior Olympics boxing champion. Now the native from Norfolk has had his sights set on Tokyo. He recently sat down with our Lisa Godley and detailed the path that has taken him around the world and hopefully to Olympic gold.
Representing the USA, Keyshawn Davis.
The last time we caught up with Keyshawn Davis, he was a teenager living in Norfolk and heading to the 2016 Olympics as a sparring partner for members of the U.S. team. But what a difference a few years can make. This year, Keyshawn competed in the Pan American Games in Peru and the World Championships in Russia, and is currently ranked number 2 in the world, which pretty much guarantees his spot on the U.S. Olympic boxing team.
The Olympics is most definitely something I'm looking forward to. It's the next biggest step in my amateur career. I most definitely want to see what that experience is like, especially being in Tokyo. I just love seeing different cultures and things like that. So just an experience I'm really excited for.
Along with the glory and enjoyment of being at the top of his sport, there are challenges as a lightweight division boxer. Keyshawn must keep his weight at or under 138 pounds. Is that difficult? You look like you're pretty much all muscle. How do you maintain that?
Every boxer would tell you that's the hardest part about boxing is maintaining weight, especially being that we don't fight that much. And so outside the ring, you can gain a lot of weight easily. So maintaining weight is most definitely the hardest part about boxing. But once your body gets adapted to it, it just stays in shape all the time. Then it becomes a habit, and then it starts to get easier and easier over time.
I asked Keyshawn what a typical day looks like when he's training.
We weigh in before we train every morning, so about 7 a.m. we'll weigh in. After we eat like a light breakfast, we probably go for a sprint or a long run or lift some weights in the morning time. And in the afternoon or evening, that's when we do our boxing workout. Bag work, hit the pads. If you have to lose weight, we'll do sauna, but anything technical outside of the conditioning part, that's what we do. Technical work in the afternoon and evening session.
As for his diet, he says it's protein, and more protein.
I eat a lot of beef, a lot of chicken I like to eat. Also like a lot of fruits, a lot of natural stuff. Keep a lot of water in my body. You gotta stay hydrated, especially when you're losing weight.
Keyshawn captured a silver medal at both the Pan American Games and the World Championships, but his desire is to capture the gold at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Keyshawn and his older brother Kelvin, who fights in the 158-pound weight class, are hoping to be there together. After all, they've been training together along with their baby brother Keon ever since Mom first shared with them that their father was a boxer and asked if they were interested in learning the sport. They were, so she took them to the boxing gym not far from their home.
As soon as we walked in, there was kids our age sparred in the ring. They was just practice, but they actually fighting. We was watching them for like an hour, and we were just so engaged with it. And then after a while, she was like, "Do y'all want to sign up?" And we was like, "Yeah, all three of us." I was 9, my bigger brother was 11, and my younger brother was 7. We was like, "Yeah, we want to fight." So the next day, we started fighting. We never stopped.
Since then, all of the Davis brothers have exceeded and excelled in boxing, and they rarely miss an opportunity to build each other up or to remind themselves to keep their eyes on the prize.
But most of the time, if you just stay focused on anything you do, but in the boxing game, just stay focused on whatever your goal is. Stay focused, don't let nobody sidetrack you.
While Keon is still too young for the 2020 Olympics, Kelvin prepares for his Olympic trials later this month, and Keyshawn gears up for his in December. We wish them well, and we'll keep you posted. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And Keyshawn and Kelvin Davis are the first siblings to compete in the Olympic boxing trials since 1976. So we wish them the very best. Let me tell you very quickly about Fashion for Awareness, which is a Hampton Roads nonprofit that uses fashion as an innovative way to address mental health issues. They're going to be presenting their first public presentation about postpartum depression on this coming Sunday, October the 27th, at the Slay the Runway, Virginia's Prom and Bridal Expo. It's at the Hampton Roads Convention Center in Hampton. It's from 1 until 5 p.m. And if you want more information, you can go to vapromandbridalexpo.com. So find out more information there. And we are so grateful that you decided to spend an hour of your life with us today. If you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. Next week on Another View and Another View history lesson on the Civil War, our special guest is Christy Coleman, CEO of the American Civil War Museum. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer. And Sarah Avery, who won the Hampton Roads Black Media Professional Scholarship, answered our phones. I'm Barbara Hamley. Make it a fantastic weekend, everyone. And thank you so very, very much for listening to Another View.